Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Work Better Together with Teams collaboration within and outside your organization webinar today. I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to our webinar and to introduce to you who's on the line with you. My name is Stephanie Baskerville. I am the content writer here at ProServeIT, and I have my amazing colleague, Tony Caporaletti, affectionately dubbed our IT Sherpa, who's joining us today. 14 years in the IT industry, I believe, Tony. He's one of close. There we go. One of ProServeIT's knowledgeable solutions architects, and he specializes in unified communications, which of course includes Microsoft Teams and Microsoft Phone systems. So welcome, Tony. Thanks so much for being on the line with us today. Folks, again, if you do have questions throughout this webinar, you can certainly put them into the Q&A or into the chat there. I don't know if everybody has the access to the chat, but you definitely have access to the Q&A. So you can feel free to do that, and we will be happy to answer those questions kind of as they come up. And I think that's about as much of an introduction that they need from me there, Tony. So I'm going to pass the mic, so to speak, over to you, and I'll chime in if we do find any questions on the line. I'll monitor them on the back end here, but you can take it away.
Thank you,
Let's
Steph.
chat about
Appreciate
Teams.
that. So what I thought we would do here, we've got 30 minutes, which is not a lot of time, but I'll probably talk for 15 to 20 minutes and go through some things related to this. And then, at the end we can have questions, but feel free if you have questions now, during this, Steph, post them in the chat. Steph will address them, and then we can probably address them as we go, or Steph, we can find our time, in a pause and then possibly answer them. So again, yes, thank you for joining. I think what we wanted to do here is really, this is kind of like an intro for organizations that are, maybe looking to start using Teams. You may have come from a different platform before, Google, anyone at box.com. And I thought we put this checklist on our website, and I'm not sure if you saw it, so I thought it was a good place to start. So I figured go through these, because these are the questions that actually I get on a regular basis from a lot of customers. And these are the things that I spend a lot of time talking about. So I wanted to address them here and then give you something to think about, so that if you are looking at Teams, or if you already are using Teams, these will at least give you something to think about and maybe address at some point. So one is, are you interested in moving data to Microsoft Cloud from one source or another, such as a file server or a cloud provider, as I mentioned? Maybe that's Google. Maybe you have on-prem file servers that you're looking to, either decommission those file servers and start to move your infrastructure away from on-premise into the Microsoft Cloud. Teams can be a way to utilize that in conjunction with some of the other services that Microsoft provides, such as SharePoint. Is there a need to increase collaboration and efficiency for your staff? Well, that's a no-brainer. It's pretty much a yes in every company. Do you have a conferencing solution in place today that integrates with other productivity apps? When we started using Teams, we've used it a couple of years now, but last year when the pandemic hit, we saw a lot of customers kind of jump to different solutions, Zoom being one of them, right away. And you even had customers that are jumping into Zoom when they're already even paying for Microsoft Teams, and they didn't even necessarily know what Teams could do for them. So we'll touch on a little bit of that today as well. Are you protecting data and your intellectual property appropriately while still being able to collaborate internally and externally? This is a big one lately, and this is going to be something that we're probably going to focus on today. And eventually, I think this is where you're probably going to want to tap into some of our help, or maybe other consultants' help to help you nail this down. Do you have a need to collaborate with other vendors and customers outside of your organization? I've been getting this question a lot. A lot of companies want to collaborate with other organizations, and it's, the last 15 years or so, the primary way to do that was phone calls and email. So as we start to transition away from email as the primary form of communication, Microsoft Teams is a solution that can address that and start to move us away from email as a primary form of communication. So what we're going to do is there's really like 4 things within Microsoft Teams that are, the primary components. And if I'm going to I'll pull up my demo environment here. Bear with me. So I'm going to be using, I'll use the web applications here for the most part because it's just easier for me to log into. This is a demo environment that was built recently for us, mostly for testing out Teams Voice and doing some training within here for Teams Voice. But if you look on the left, you've got a couple different buckets, right? You've got chat, you've got Teams, calendaring, and calls and files. These are the primary functions of Microsoft Teams. When you start out using this platform, the easy thing to turn on by default is to start chatting, right? A lot of other applications out there offer a chat-based solution. Teams is no different. This has kind of evolved from the legacy Skype for Business or Skype app from many years ago. So chat is one of them. It's an easy tool to use within an organization to collaborate effectively amongst your users in your company. And it's nice is that, with each different user, it can pull your what's called presence here. You'll notice that this here, Eric is showing as offline and it's showing white. If he was online at some point and logged into the Teams app somewhere either on his mobile device or on his PC or desktop, it would show a color-coded presence indicator. So that tells you whether or not he's available, he might be busy, do not disturb, etc. So you can get a quick glance of, if you want to get a hold of a user, that's an easy way to do it and see whether or not they're busy. And instead of passing messages back and forth through email, companies, and we're starting to see more and more messaging back and forth through this Teams chat. The second part of it is the Teams tab. So this is where really the heart and the meat of the platform comes in. There's a lot you can do with this, and as you'll probably notice, if you are already using Teams and you've given access to it to the users in your organization, you'll notice that people have started setting up different groups in here. Whatever it may be, you can create any number of groups. They call it Teams, but it's essentially a collaboration. It's a collaboration environment for a number of people to get together, chat amongst themselves. You can create different channels within each team. You can share files together, etc. So it's a good way to bring people together in an environment where they can share content. You can post files up here. You can add applications that you guys typically work on. Maybe it's even just a document like an Excel or a Word document. You can post it to this Teams chat and work on it together and collaborate on it versus, again, passing it back and forth through email. And then the last thing is where does external collaboration come in? Well, it's great because even if you're external vendors or customers that you may be working with, even if they don't have Office 365 and they're not using it as their primary tool, you can still give them access to a particular team or a particular channel inside a team. And that's nice because then you don't have to pass content back and forth over email and then risk the security of what's happening to it once I send it outside of my organization. What are they doing with it? So with it staying inside your environment within your Teams platform, you can control it much better. And there are ways to do that. And this is one of the things that we do as a company to help you to set this up. Right? So we offer services to help organizations kind of dig into what are some of the use cases that you have in your company that you might want to use Teams with, right? So what we do is we take a couple different scenarios. We work with you on those particular scenarios. We show you the art of the possible, and then we kind of go in and build that particular use case within Teams, and then you can take that and build off of it from there. The other thing that Teams offers as part of a collaboration solution is audio conferencing, right? So if you're using an audio conferencing solution today, you may or may not want to transition into the Teams environment. So instead of sending out invitations, meeting invitations through Outlook that are not necessarily integrated with that solution, here it's really just as simple as a click of a button into to create a new Teams meeting. If you're using Teams already, it's an easy enough, it's a very easy transition to be able to move into using Teams as a conferencing solution. And the last part of it, which I'll show you in a minute how some of these things work. The last part of the Teams collaboration solution, what really ties it all together, is the calling solution as part of it, or the voice. And so you'll notice that once you enable the voice component with Teams, you'll see this little the telephone here on the left, and then that basically tells you that you have the ability now to dial outside of your organization to the publicly switched telephone network. So maybe I will pause for just a second and take a breath and a drink, and if there's any questions.
There is a question. Yep, there is a question here. So just talking about sharing files here, is there like a limit of size for each file that's being shared? Do you know that, if there's a limit or not? I know that we've sent some pretty big files back and forth, our teams.
Yeah, that's a good question. It used to be, and I don't. This may have changed. I know that they made some changes in recent past. It used to be, I think it was like 2 gigs was the file size that you could share or that you could post inside Teams. So just to give you a kind of background, Teams, the back end of it, or what it's built on, I guess is SharePoint, right? So we're kind of limited to some of the SharePoint capabilities and or limitations, I'm going to say. So I believe it was 2 gigs for the file size. And then there was also a limitation for the folder size or document size within a particular team or library, right? And I think that was, I think it was maybe 2 terabytes or a couple hundred gigabytes for that particular team or channel. So again, I'll probably want to take that back as a takeaway, but I think that's what it was. In a nutshell, there are limitations, yes. Any other questions there, Steph, before we move forward?
Yes, we've got one from Thomas. Can you use a physical telephone handset in a boardroom with Teams?
Yes, you can. Simple answer is yes, you can. Again, we would just set it up as a conference device to be able to potentially dial out. So there's different licenses for that scenario. But yes, you can use a physical handset in a boardroom for sure.
Perfect. Oh, and we've got somebody that just clarified it as 250 gigs. Upload files to OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. Up to 250 gigs.
Oh, total for that particular site, yeah.
No, it looks like a file up to 250 gigs. It can be uploaded at any time. Yeah. Yeah. Now that doesn't matter. That of course doesn't take into account how much overall space you have, but the file size you can upload apparently up to 250 gigs. So
yes.
Thank you for the. Oh, that was an anonymous attendee that wrote that in. So there we go.
Thank you, anonymous.
Thank you, anonymous. So that is all the questions for now. And we can move on, and then I'll see if there's any more that come in as well.
Sure. And again, touching on, I guess, some of the different questions. Actually, one of the things I want to point out is that I get this question a lot, is that how can I easily collaborate with another organization? Well, there's one way to do it easily. I will give you a tip on doing it, but I will caution you with doing it, because there are some ramifications for doing it. But this is one of the things that we help out with. The big thing here I'll talk about is it's called federation. So let's say that ProServeIT wants to collaborate with Rogers or different vendor that we work with. An easy way to do that, to make that connection between the two organizations, is through basic federation within Microsoft Teams. So I'll show you how to do that really quick, but I will caution you against actually doing it without having some other things in place prior to that, before you start going and sharing things out with other members of that organization. And so I also have access, admin access to this tenant. And the simple way to do that is if you go to the Teams Admin Center, which I think I already have brought up. Is it here? No. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, here it is. So inside the Teams Admin Center, there is a setting for organization-wide settings and then external access. So inside here, you can choose whether or not you want this on or off from the admin side of things. Usually by default, these are on, by the way. These are on, by the way. And then if you want to add any particular domain, I've just added in ProServeIT.com as an allowed domain. You can also add a domain to block as well, in case you wanted to do that. But this is a simple way just to kind of add a simple federation, so that allows you to see the users. Basically, it allows you to see their presence if you want to chat with them on Microsoft Teams. It's a nice way to add a little bit of a like a personal thing with that particular vendor. Beyond that, there are other settings within this admin center here that you should probably go through to help you to identify where you should apply certain policies and what kind of access you should give to different users or different organizations to allow them to access and use content. Again, this is a very powerful platform, but as you can probably tell, as you start to enable and create different teams and channels beyond that, this platform can get out of hand very quickly. And if you're new to Teams, it's advisable for you to get some help in setting it up the right way to set you up for success. Any questions around that?
No, but there's another question here. It sounds like somebody's writing in saying we started using Teams, but we have not been able to use it with more than 3 people because apparently when the 4th person enters, they get feedback and other issues that are happening with it, with a video meeting when like video's on. So they're just wondering if there's what would that maybe be causing. They've had to actually purchase a Zoom add-on subscription to be able to kind of get around more than 3 people in a meeting.
Huh. That's strange. 3 people I've heard, possible errors with, hundreds of people, but 3 people sounds like it could be an issue with, there's a number of things that could be causing that issue. It's hard to tell off the bat. So I don't want to speculate, but bandwidth is probably a big part of it. If you're using video and that person may not have proper bandwidth, it's hard to say at this point. But I'm sorry I don't have the the silver bullet answer for you.
If you want to follow up with us, though, I'll cloud@ProServeIT.com. Maybe we can take that offline and maybe see about assisting you with that particular problem if you want to reach out to us. So I will follow up shortly. There is another question here.
Okay.
With Microsoft Teams, is it possible to have meetings with contacts that are not on my list? For example, contacts that aren't part of a company list, or is it specifically for people in my organization?
No, that's the beauty of it, right? That's what we're kind of getting at here, is that you can collaborate with people outside of your organization. Again, that's really what we're trying to get to, is that instead of passing content, maybe it's your intellectual property that you guys have built. You don't want to pass it outside the network. You don't maybe know what's going to happen to it. So if you're really concerned with security and don't want to do that, there are ways to protect it, and you can do that with the Microsoft platform. Using SharePoint, using Teams. There's a number of policies that are input in just the Teams side of things that can help you with that. Let alone the stuff that you can do in a more granular fashion with SharePoint and some of the other security features in the Microsoft stack. So yes. And I'll show you an example. I don't have it as part of this particular demo tenant, but let me bring this is my, my corporate account here. I want to show you something here that, where is a team that I think would be a good example where there's external collaboration here without showing too much, right? Yeah. So let's say here, this one here with Reimer and PSIT, we collaborate with a gentleman in this company. So we've given him access to a certain extent into our tenant. We were federated with him. We're sharing back and forth. And you'll notice that here it shows as D. Reimer guest. And so there's two types of access, right? There's guest access, and then there's external access, and they both have different, features associated with them. And also there's some limitations as well. But this is great because now, we keep our documents inside our tenant. David keeps his documents inside his tenant, and it just makes things more secure. Instead of going into email, now David's using Teams on a regular basis. And sorry, let me pull this back over because this is important too. What if I can get rid of this? I'll move it over. If you are using Teams, you're familiar with this already. You'll notice that there's your corporation. And if you click on that, you can have access to multiple different organizations within your particular tenant, right? And again, Microsoft, I've got Reimer Consulting. So each one of these represent a different level of access for me to be able to go in and do certain things. And again, this is some of the things that we do for other customers and companies out there. We help them to organize their Microsoft Teams environment and kind of show them what are some of the best practices about going and configuring this for them. Just wanted to help you guys get set up for success in using this platform, because there is quite a lot to it. There's even a lot that we haven't even talked about. I haven't even talked about all the different applications that are possible in here, which I'm sure that if you're using it, you've probably explored some of them. But every day they're adding on new applications to integrate with Teams. So I'll pause there for a second, and if there's any other questions. I know we're kind of already bumping up against time, and time's flying here as I'm.
Time is flying, yes. We do have more questions. I'm happy to pause them for now if we wanted to maybe continue with something else. I'm not sure.
Why don't we go through some of the questions, and that may lead us into some of the other things here as well, because we only got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the questions we have is, what is the difference between external speaker and guest?
Yeah, again, there's different levels of access that are associated with it. If you notice, I go into the admin center here. Again, there can be different things for meetings, for guest access. And there's, where was it at? Yeah, so guest access. There's all kinds of different policies within guest access that you can enable or disable as part of this. And so, yeah, so one is that, allow guest access in Teams. Do you even want to turn that on? Well, on, yes, or it's off altogether. You don't want anybody collaborating outside of your tenant or allowing anybody else in. So that's a surefire way to secure your environment. So again, we go through some of these different features and access features with each particular functionality, and then we'll help you to enable some of those things, during that engagement.
Perfect. And then the other question that we have here, wait a minute, where did it go? This may be another sort of, again, it may be a takeaway, but Allison's asking, when I want to invite an external person to a meeting, I have to copy and paste their email address into the invite. Is there a way of adding them in a more user-friendly way, like an autofill in some way?
So that's an interesting question. Yes. Well, is it Allison who asked the question?
Allison, yes.
Allison. So Allison, typically, if you're using Outlook if you're using Outlook and you're using Microsoft Teams to send your meeting invites, there's really an easy way to create a meeting. If you're just setting up a brand new invite, and that person, you've never emailed them before, you're going to have to type it in that person's email address into the the invite or into the email the first time. Once you've typed it in once, it's saved in the cache, and then it'll autofill the next time you start typing the first couple letters of it. And maybe I'll show you what that looks like here from my standpoint.
Is that only through Outlook though, or can that also be done via Teams? I think that's what the question is. Like Outlook does that, but Teams might not necessarily do that.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying here. So if I go into Teams and if I go into Calendar,
Yeah.
let's do that. I don't. So this is actually kind of cool too, because I don't actually go in and set up meetings this way. Most of the time, I just set up meetings through Outlook, and usually just send a link. Well, it's taking quite a while to load.
It doesn't like your calendar, Tony.
I know. What's new? I don't like my calendar either, to be honest. It shows I have nothing left, so that's actually a great sign. But I know that that's not accurate. So if I was going to go in and create a new meeting here, let's just do that as a test, just to show Allison what you're doing is. So test meeting and attendees. If I type in someone outside of my organization, let's try David. David REI. Yeah, so it found David because David is federated with us, right? And I've also emailed or used David in Teams and in my Microsoft tenant before. If it's somebody brand new, this is not going to work. And if it's somebody who's definitely outside of your organization, that won't work as either. The only way that I know of to do it is to send a message through Outlook, or maybe even send a message through Teams, or an invite through Teams, and it should save it in the cache.
So like maybe if they've been chatting with them via Teams.
If you've been chatting with them, it should work. It should pull it up like you see here with that person's name. But if you haven't before, then there's the likelihood that it won't pull it up because it has nothing. It has no frame of reference to be able to do that, right? Unless it would be pulling from Outlook, and it doesn't pull from Outlook like it does. Hopefully that answered your question.
Perfect. And then again, another question here. Wow, we've got like 10 questions that just came in, 5 questions that just came in. This is awesome.
Okay.
I just wanted, so I think that some of these questions will probably just take offline just because it is 2:30 right now. Yep. So we are cognizant of the time here. But one question wondering about the files. And again, I think this will be sort of also also discussed in our follow-up webinar that will be happening May 19th. But how many days can the file or document stay available on Microsoft Teams? And I believe that would be a.
How many days can it be available?
Definitely, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't go away.
Right?
Doesn't go away when it's up there unless somebody deletes it. Just like chats, all the chats that you would see in Microsoft Teams, those are persistent chats, and they are in perpetuity. Even though you might hide them, those chats will remain there. That's for mostly compliance reasons, if necessary. Which is actually it's a good feature and a bad feature too for some people that don't want it, but it's mostly for compliance.
Perfect. And then the last question: does Teams have the ability to create a group calendar that also has reoccurring events? So.
Group, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like, you can create a shared calendar within Teams, just like you might within Outlook or in a public folder like you might used to use in Outlook. But there's definitely ways to create shared calendars within Microsoft Teams in a particular channel that you guys can use as a particular group. So yeah, that's a pretty standard use case for a lot of companies. They want to do that with groups of users for sure.
Awesome. All right, I think that is the last sort of question here, so we can probably just do our little follow-up here, Tony, and close out the webinar. This has been wonderful.
I'm sorry I couldn't get to all the questions. Like I said, 30 minutes goes really quick, and I thought I might even have trouble finding content to talk about, but you know, it always ends up being the case. So yeah, let me pull up this. I don't know if we've talked about this before, Steph. Where'd it go? Our call to action.
We would like to talk about our call to action for sure. Yeah. I
So
think
we've
that,
got 2 more
we
minutes.
definitely want to do that. 2 more minutes. Let's do it.
So I know we've talked a lot about, Teams and some of the things that it can do. One of the things that we do a lot of, again, is work with customers and helping them to get Teams set up and build a good foundation for using Teams. So we offer this workshop. It's a 2 to 3 day workshop for us to come in and help give you some guidance and consulting around some of the best practices or recommended practices with using Teams. We take you through a couple of your use cases specific to your company, and then build out those use cases within your team's environment with the policies and the settings that are you want applied to them. And we take you through, again, the right way to set it up, and then you can apply that. You can take that back to the rest of your team or your organization, and then apply that to other use cases or different departments within the company. So if you do want to take advantage of this offer, please get a hold of us before May 27th this year and receive a 20% discount. And with that, I will leave that there. And I appreciate you guys spending a few minutes with me today and listening to me. I hope you found some value out of it, and I will look forward to the next video in about a month.
Yes, indeed. And just to let you know, there are some questions coming in about whether or not we're going to be sharing the recording and things like that. Yes, folks, we will be following up with an email that will give you the recording link, and we'll also let you know about the follow-up sort of webinar that we'll be doing on May 19th. If you're not already aware of it, we will be talking about Teams and SharePoint and kind of how you can work with those, use those together as document management systems. So looking forward to that. Hopefully you'll sign up for that as well. And yeah, I just want to say thanks so much, Tony, for being on the call and sharing your wisdom with us. It's been greatly appreciated. And yeah, I think that'll do it for us today. So thanks so much for joining us, folks. And please stay tuned. If you have any questions or concerns, again, you can email us, cloud@proserveit.com. We are here to assist. But until we chat again, I will say take care, folks. Stay safe out there, and we will talk again soon. Thanks,
Enjoy
everyone.
the show, everybody. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.